Drop the 4, keep the 1. This is a new era of Survivor.
Can we do this forever? That's a question that every TV show needs to answer, and the answer is almost always no. Take for example any of the most popular sitcoms that you love to binge. Friends, The Office, Modern Family, Parks and Rec. Whatever the show may be, the same rule always applies. As the show goes on, bigger equals better. To keep the viewer interested, the writers of these shows need to continue to come up with bigger, crazier, and more exciting things going on. Eventually this is taken too far and there's just no more stories left to tell. Survivor 41, signs of a declining TV show. Although Survivor and the reality TV genre feels like a completely different beast at a first glance, there are actually lots of similarities from a sitcom. Just like how at its core, The Office Season 1 and The Office Season 9 has the same overall structure, the show felt like it had lost the spark that made it special. Imagine if we wind the clocks back to the summer of 2000 with Survivor Borneo, and compare that to the most recent season of Survivor. Swap out the writers of your favorite TV sitcom for the Survivor producers, and the formula stays pretty much the same. After so many years, the producers burn through ideas and the audience starts to lose interest. Today we're going to be exploring that idea in its entirety, and by the end of this video I have a clear-cut answer with where Survivor 41 ranks as a season, but also the longevity of the franchise. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Survivor Retrospective. If you're finding my channel for the first time today or started watching my content recently, this YouTube channel started with what I called Survivor Retrospective. I set out with a goal to analyze, critique, and reflect on every single season of Survivor, and in the process give every season a ranking. Before season 41 came out, we reviewed 40 seasons of Survivor in 40 days, and now it's time to add season 41 to that list. The good news is that if you're interested in checking out the entire Survivor Retrospective series, I have a playlist containing all of the videos, and I'll place a link to that in the description. Anyways, with all that said, let's get into it.
Survivor is back.
Survivor 41 had an immense amount of hype and anticipation surrounding it before the season began. However, as time progressed and as the season began to unfold, as more twists were being introduced, the twist became the spotlight over the players themselves. And in recent times, we had a winner that made the fans scratch their head with confusion. How could we have possibly gotten to this point? I purposely chose to not make this video directly after the Survivor 41 finale because I felt like we all needed time to chill out. In fact, I gave myself the 24-hour rule to fully reflect. Deep down, I am fully obsessed with Survivor. I mean, like, I'm making videos online talking about this show. And as a fan, I feel as if any time Survivor is on my screen is a good time. The good, the bad, the ugly. I truly feel that any Survivor on my screen is better than having no Survivor on my screen. And that's even including bottom of the barrel seasons like Fiji. So although as a fan, I had tons of fun with this season, I am trying to leave my biases at the door as there's just way too many flaws with this season that could have been easily avoided. We are going to be going over every single problem I had in detail, but I am of course referring to what felt like the millions of twists that were added into Survivor 41 to make it harder. 26 days, beware advantages, lack of supplies, hourglass twist, shot in the dark, do or die, no swaps, the all new knowledge is power advantage, and of course Survivor taking new editing liberties with breaking the fourth wall.
Remind players that sometimes when you think you're on the outside, you're exactly where you want to be.
With Survivor Winners at War ending in a bizarre fashion with our favorite winners waving us goodbye on May 13th, 2020, we would have to wait patiently for 497 days until Survivor 41 would premiere on September 22nd, 2021. Although everyone was excited, we were also nervous with each passing rumor that came out with how the season was going to be played out. In fact, I even made a video dedicated to this topic with all my worries going into the season. See, the Survivor fandom is super passionate, but at the same time, we are people that fear change. And after watching that first episode of season 41, we could tell things were going to be very different. But somehow at the same time, they were able to stick the landing, for the most part.
One of the most mentally draining, physically challenging, and socially complicated games ever seen on television.
Jeff Probst, of course, opens up the season with welcoming us all back to the show we all know and love. And although some fourth wall breaking action didn't land throughout the entire season, this felt needed here as we had just taken the longest break from Survivor in the show's history, and all the fans, the producers, and the players were eager to get back into it. Other positives about this premiere were things like the Summit Island, which would become a common theme throughout the entire pre-merge, and penalties for losing immunity challenges. At times, the Summit Island felt repetitive, but when it worked, I think it would come off extremely well, especially for creating those cross-tribal alliances early on in the game without any swaps existing. But Jeffrey didn't stick the landing perfectly here in the first episode, and we briefly need to talk about it. Guys.
Love saying it, it's part of the show, but I too want to be of the moment. So, my question to you to decide for us In the context of Survivor, is a word like guys okay?
We can't argue that the viewership declined after the first episode of the season. In reality, it's super common for a show to open up with more viewers at the start of the season and slowly decline as the year goes on. But in this situation for Survivor, it was an extreme decline. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the guys' statement that was made by Jeff Probst at the start of the season.
It's at Jeff Probst on Twitter. I'll probably never read it anyway.
Sure, I was annoyed when the change was first made, but my main issue doesn't come from the change itself, but more on how it was handled. Ricard turned into a scapegoat and got all the blame for the change, whereas in reality, Jeff wanted to make the change the entire time, and he just didn't want to get the blame for it. Taking the word guys out doesn't change the Survivor viewing experience. Maybe from a nostalgic lens I can see that, but it doesn't change the game today. The problem I have with making this change is they made a big deal about it instead of making the change and not acknowledging it. If they just made the change first time Jeff came in, they said come on in, we wouldn't have had the same big reaction. But speaking of Ricard, let's talk about the cast of season 41. For all the negative press that this season of Survivor received, rightfully so or not, I think everyone needs to appreciate the stellar job the casting team did finding all these amazing characters. If this review is based solely on the cast alone, we could end the video right here. The final rating of Survivor 41 is a 10 out of 10 double S tier. Just joking, you're going to need to wait until the end of the video for my actual ranking, but let's take a moment to appreciate how strong this cast was.
Make my game or break my game, but at least I'm playing for me.
Welcome to the 41st season of Survivor. Let it go. Deshawn got flamed. You are safe, my friend.
Butterflies are just dead relatives saying hi.
Yeah.
No, but you can have this fig. Right before we left for Tribal, I gave my extra vote and my idol to Tiffany.
Save tonight at Tribal Council.
Xander does it! Yasa wins immunity! And their first challenge of the season.
Our first Canadian winner, Erika. Congratulations.
I can make that puzzle out of beads at my house.
We don't have much content to go off of for Sarah or Eric, sorry not sorry, but take a look at literally everyone else in this cast. Every fan had some type of player to root for this season, whether it be the professional athlete, the Aussie type player, the under the radar strategist, even Malcolm and Denise 2.0. And if you go even further back, there are tons of hidden gems that had tons of potential. I have two main complaints with the cast overall, and both of them can be easily fixed by turning back the dial on the number of twists and advantages in the game. For starters, Survivor is casting super fans of the game and not random people on the streets anymore. These players are here to play hard strategically, and the addition of unfair twists and advantages makes it a better option to stay safe instead of making those risky big moves. I always like to discuss the winner of the season at the end of my videos, but we need to at least mention Erika's edit here, or I guess a better way to phrase it is lack of an edit she received this season. I understand the editing difficulties with putting together a compelling story when Luvu never went to Tribal Council, but most of their pre-merge content was from Nasir and Sydney, yet the rest of the members of the Luvu tribe made it to the final 6, with Heather getting completely purpled and the winner of the season not getting much screen time in the early parts of the game. I would have loved to see an alternate version of the season play out where we throw out all the twists that took up the screen time and just let these players play.
But if you want to make history by changing history, smash the hourglass.
What is the point of winning if you were just going to lose? It was only a matter of time before we discussed the elephant in the room, which is of course the merge hourglass twist. And to a lesser extent, we have the do or die twist as well. Just as earlier in this video, I discussed how Ricard took the blame for the guys' situation, where in reality the blame should have been pointed at production. The exact same thing can be said here for the hourglass twist. Erika received most of the hate for the twist when anybody in the same situation would have done the same thing. Way back when, I gave Erika a lot of heat during my weekly episode recaps, and for the small chance you're watching this, I just want to say, Erika, I am sorry.
People are going to talk about this one for a long time.
My only positive I have for this twist is that it plays off much better on a rewatch when you're able to binge the show at a faster pace. The issue is during the live watch, the first half of the hourglass twist completely stops all of the momentum that the merge episode is supposed to provide for a Survivor season. So as we began the video comparing Survivor 41 to a long-running sitcom show, the example works perfectly when you look at all the overpowered twists and advantages in the season.
First person to drop out of this challenge will be forced to participate in a new game called Survivor, do or die.
There is a lot, and I mean a lot to talk about here regarding all the twists and advantages this season. I could easily make a separate video on my thoughts on these new advantages Survivor introduced this season. I might get some heat for this, but 26 days Survivor is gonna be a pro. Watching the show on TV, you don't notice the change at all. Normally I would say no tribe swaps is the con, but we'll get back to that in a minute. The lack of rewards is the con for me personally, as I think they're really fun to watch, but at the same time I think penalties for losing is a pro, as it adds another layer to thinking about throwing a challenge. Although it was a hit or miss, I think the Summit Island is a pro, as it allowed for cross-tribal interactions without a swap taking place. However, all of these right here are cons, as they made the game way too confusing to follow. And although I was excited for the shot in the dark at the start of the season, it ended up completely flopping and only being used once in the game. When you look at this pros and cons list, there's a lot of cons here, and it's not that I'm against Survivor trying new things over time to not feel stale, but it's the fact that they made all these changes in a single season that really hurts me. I wouldn't even say it makes me mad, just disappointed, because I love this show so much and expected more.
We drew rocks, we competed, and there was a winner, there was a loser, and the prize was what?
Feast and immunity.
Okay, I'm just asking.
And now let's talk about the alliance between Shan, Liana, Danny, and Deshawn. And if we wind the clocks all the way back and look at Survivor Borneo, what initially made Survivor so interesting is putting people from different walks of life together and see what happens. And throughout Survivor's evolution, lying and manipulation got involved throughout the game, and real life friendships got broken along the way. This can be seen in All Stars with Rob and Lex, or in Winners at War with all of the conversations about mental health and balancing Survivor with real life. I understand this is a little bit different, but the same rules apply, as you need to take in consideration real life feelings with what you need to do to play the game, but more importantly, win the game. We saw this happen this season with Deshawn making the difficult decision to vote out Shan. Ultimately, he chose what he thought would help progress his game the best moving forward. So part of what makes Survivor so compelling all these years later is making those difficult decisions balancing real life in the game of Survivor. I said it once and I'll say it again, I enjoyed Survivor 41 for what it was. I just wanted more. There were still fun moments to be had, like being introduced to the players through real world flashbacks, Brad creating the spy shack, Shan's ruthless gameplay on JD, the three-way idol activation, Luvu attempting to throw the challenge, or even the fake idol play. But at the end of the day, I just don't think there's enough positives to have it be considered a good season of Survivor, and honestly that worries me. Survivor 42 is coming and will probably play out the same way as season 41. I'm not looking forward to the hourglass to return or for stretches of pre-merge episodes to be focused on strictly advantages, but at the same time I'm still looking forward to the future of Survivor. And I think what hurts me the most is the edit that Erika ended up receiving. A woman hadn't won Survivor since Sarah Lacina in Survivor Game Changers. That was season 34, and yet Erika didn't receive a strong edit for the majority of the season. A season can be rocky the entire way through, but a strong conclusion helps the season as a whole leave a good taste in your mouth. Sadly, I don't think that happened with Survivor 41. I'm not even saying Erika is a bad winner, because I bet there is footage that exists of her evolving from the lamb to the lion. It's just that we didn't get to see it. Survivor is going down a very dangerous path with this new era that I hope it can bounce back from and recover from its mistakes of Survivor 41. My final rating for Survivor 41 is a 6.7 out of 10. C tier.